Well, welcome to the launch of Empowered Voices podcast. We're going to start with a series of talking to candidates that are running for city council. We do not endorse any candidates. We merely give them a platform to talk about their campaign and, of course, accessibility. We are streaming live also our audio on accessibilitybug.com. That's www.accessibilitybug.com. And if you want more information about Empower Voices, you go to www.empowervoices.us. Finally, I want full disclosure here. I am a accessibility consultant with political campaigns. And with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Hello there, Mr. Bell. How are you doing today, sir?
I am fabulous. Thank you for inviting me onto your show, Mrs. Zavala.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for the long wait, folks. It's a one-man operation that had to hook up I was doing the engineering and all that good jazz. So Mr. Davis, you've been starting this series, and you've been the first time on this platform. We're just going to start from the beginning if you want. Just tell people a little bit about yourself, because I know about you, but I'd rather you tell people who you are and what you do.
All right. So again, I'm Kenneth Bell. I am an Army veteran, community organizer, UTEP graduate, and I'm running for City Council District 3 this November. So this is my background. I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Maryland, right outside of D.C. 2012, I joined the Army, and I was stationed at Fort Bliss. I loved it so much that I just decided to stay here. So I've been in the city for 12 years. I'm still in the military now, but I'm working as a reservist, so I'm no longer active duty.
First of all, thank you for your service there, Mr. Bell. And people don't realize the sacrifice you give as volunteering. I know you went to Guatemala at one point, right, sir?
Yes, sir. That was in 2022 to 2023. I was there for a 9-month rotation. My battalion was sent to Central America, so we were placed in teams throughout different countries. So I was part of the Guatemala team. We also had people in El Salvador and Honduras. And so in that capacity, I worked with the U.S. Embassy and Guatemalan government. We did a lot of humanitarian missions, and we were doing humanitarian projects to mitigate the causes of human suffering and irregular migration. And I guess we have more time in the podcast. So we can talk about how that, how that affected like disability rights or disability advocacy down in Guatemala.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a little component of that, which is pretty cool. And so, just for those who are listening, we want to do is, of course, highlight Mr. Bell's campaign, but we also want to include accessibility because, believe it or not, folks, people with disabilities are actually voters with disability, making a huge segment. Just to give you an example, and it just in my demographic, those who are visually impaired or blind, and this is just the seniors. Granted, I don't know how many of them are registered, but seniors that are blind or visually impaired in Texas is over close to 360,000. In El Paso, we have a very high population. We have over 10,000, and those are just blind. Imagine the other disabilities. So we do make a big segment. So I do want to encourage those voters with disabilities to listen to the candidates. Make your choice. This is your choice. We're not here to say either way. With that being said, Mr. Bell, what are the highlights, or what do you think that District 3 just also I live in District 3, so I'm curious too. What are these things that are the things that are important that need to be addressed within District 3?
Well, coming from the perspective of accessibility rights, we definitely need to make sure that our sidewalks are ADA compliant. I know the city has a fund about a pot of money, about $750,000 that you can use for curb cuts. They'll use to repair certain areas for accessibility. So we definitely need to make sure that we're doing that. We also need to make sure that all of our city buildings, whether it's District 3 or elsewhere, are ADA compliant, and that we maintain ADA compliance. We actually have a new recreational center now, the Michelle Ajamian Center, which is, again, named after Michelle Ajamian, who was a huge disability rights advocate in the city of El Paso. So that recreational center was renamed in her honor because of all the great work that she's done. But it's also about making sure that our disabled community has access to programs and policies like affordable housing, to make sure that our affordable housing units are, again, ADA compliant, and that our disabled folks have access to them. Like during my campaign, I spoke to a disabled veteran who's been on a waiting list for affordable housing for a long time. And so
I'm glad you mentioned, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Bell. It's true because when it comes to housing, even for someone in a wheelchair, there's a modifications that need to be done, and sometimes apartments are kind of shy, if that's the word to use, in regards to housing someone or get a residence that has a disability, especially a mobility, because you have to include the sidewalks and whatnot. But I'm glad you mentioned about that fund, and that tells me a lot that you've done your research. Thank you, sir. With that $750,000, back in the day, it was called the ADA Enhancement Plan program. And actually, back in 2017, believe it or not, folks, we had zero funding, zero. So we advocated through, of course, Mayor Leeser at that time, and of course, Tommy Gonzalez. I know people don't like to hear that name, but it went up to 500,000. And then Margot wanted to drop it down to 250. We're like, don't think that's going to happen. So it went up to 750,000. With that being said, Mr. Bell, if it ever comes within your tenure, if you're elected, would you help us advocate for more funding? Because what happens a lot, Mr. Bell, is curb cuts, yes, but also audible pedestrian signals for those who are blind like myself. Those are really help us navigate through the streets safely. Unfortunately, they're very expensive. They're range around $10,000 per each. APS, that's installation and all that. But from your perspective, and I'm glad you kind of touched on about Guatemala. Now, I want to talk about that first, if you don't mind. I know I'm jumping around, but I want to get the whole picture here. In Guatemala, I know that you helped build ramps for kids or had disabilities, correct?
Yes, sir. Just to give you a little bit of background on that, Guatemala has one shelter in the entire country that is designed for disabled children. Many of these are children who are, again, they're orphans. Many of them have, physical and mental disabilities, and so they may not be able to live a normal life. And so while I was down there, one of the projects that we did was we built the ramp, because the orphanage was 2 stories. The problem was that many of the children were in wheelchairs, and so they were not going to be able to get to the second floor, where many of the rooms that had been converted into bedrooms for the children. So what we did was we financed the project of building a ramp. So we worked with the Guatemala military's engineer corps. We worked with the shelter and the doctors who work at the shelter to get this project going, to create accessibility just for the people who are living in this facility.
So as that transcends, that's why I kind of brought that up first, how that translates to today here in El Paso, with so many streets being inaccessible. And it's sad because some major streets, mind you, it's 2024, right? There's major streets that don't have curb cuts, like Yarborough, at one point Yarborough and North Loop, and it's kind of agitating that we pay taxes. I'm a homeowner. Me and my wife are homeowners. We pay all these taxes, and yet the city decides to spend the money on ballparks and spray parks and this and that. And aside from accessibility, how can you address those needs that we want regarding even streets and safety and safety for let's say I'm walking down the street, I'm blind, so kind of mitigate the chances of me getting mugged, right? I'm not saying that El Paso's that bad, but what can you do to address the needs, for example, safety and the streets, the way the streets are?
Well, so when it comes to like safety, like with streets and sidewalks, there's a lot of things that we can do. Right now, the city allocates about $7 million a year for street repair, and it's estimated that we're going to need $40 million. So we're far behind on that. So things that we can do. One is we need to aggressively seek funding from state and federal programs so that we're not having to raise taxes on the residents just for basic things that we need. And so we can seek grants from the Texas Department of Transportation. We can seek grants from from the U.S. Department of Transportation, so that again we can get the issue of street repairs done, but also street lights as well. That's another serious issue. If you're walking down the street, you should be able to. It's nighttime. You want to feel safe. You don't want to walk down walk down like a dark alley or walk down a street where you can potentially get mugged because someone's was hiding behind the bushes and you weren't able to get to them. But also, just to speak on what you mentioned before, with the oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. The mechanisms that you mentioned before, yeah,
the ADA enhancement.
Right. Yeah, those are expensive, but you know what? It's an expense worth taking, and so because we need to invest in our community, and especially the disabled community. So again, aggressively seeking out funding, but we also need to make sure that the money that we have now in the city's $1.3 billion budget, that's being used responsibly. Right now, the city's hemorrhaging a lot of money because there's lack of oversight on where the money's going. So earlier this year, I think it was July actually, the city had audited 7 of its Chapter 380 agreements and found that 6 of these companies were not in compliance, meaning the city had paid them money first as part of the contract for services to be provided, and these 6 of the companies did not comply. They were not providing the services. And again, that's $6 million. Well, you might want to sit down for this one. 2 of the companies did not have recapture clauses in their contracts, meaning if they didn't provide the service, the city could not get their money refunded. And that was $1.3 million that we lost.
Wow.
One of the companies pulled out of the agreement after they took the money. The other one defaulted on the agreement. So that's $1.3 million that we lost. That could go towards, ADA compliance, going towards curb cuts, going towards other programs. And we're hemorrhaging money. So we have 65 active Chapter 380 agreements. We've audited 7. We need to audit the rest of them to find out where we are losing money and basically put a stop to that. But also in the future, we need to make sure that we have recapture clauses in all of our city contracts. So when we're doing business, we need to make sure that we're getting what we paid for.
Yes, sir. Amen to the that's for sure. And just to let you know, those who are listening to you, Mr. Bell, that right now, and I confirmed this last week, as of right now, folks, there's 200 inaccessible bus stops in the city of El Paso. 200. Isn't that amazing? And so I'm glad you're well aware of the funding and all that. So let me go to another subject here, which is important for a lot of people: elderly people with disability, low income, you name it, everybody. Taxes. So I know you individually can't really impact, but as a group, yes, like Arfieto and Kennedy and Malinad. So what can we do to help reduce the how we pay taxes or the increase, how to stop increasing our taxes?
So there's 2 things, right? First of all, over the past 2 years, the city has adopted a no new revenue rate, which is good, meaning they're not going to raise our rates. The problem with that is, like, when you have appraisals with the Central Appraisal District, they're just raising your appraisals, which kind of cancels out the no new revenue rate. You're still getting an increase. And one of the things a lot of people didn't know is that Central Appraisal Districts throughout Texas started having elections this year. You can elect people to the Central Appraisal District to represent you. In El Paso, we did not have elections. And the reason for that being is only 2 people in the entire county actually filed to run for the Central Appraisal District.
That was in June, right? Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so they just got put in. And so we need to make sure that people are aware of these elections so that we can have contested elections and have people go on record, committing to responsible appraisals, not just blindly appraising, and making sure that they're respecting our tax dollars. But also, secondly, with certificates of obligations, certificates of obligations are designed for emergencies.
Now, can you explain? Because some folks might not know what that. So is that? And I know the answer, but I want to make sure people understand that when you say certificates of obligation, if I could talk right,
Right.
is that a voted, or is that just does council approve that? How does that work?
It's basically the council can approve non-voter approved debt. They have a maximum of a ceiling of $100 million, so they can approve up to $100 million in debt without having to go to the voters.
Wow.
And it's designed for emergencies, like let's say an earthquake or a flood were to occur, and there's lots of property damage to be done, and it wouldn't be feasible to hold a bond election so they can just as part of an emergency use a certificate of obligations to deal with those issues. The problem is that they've been abused. They've been used for non-emergencies. They've been used for things that should be covered under general fund.
But let me ask you this. While you're talking about that, Mr. Bell. And I'm bring this up as it comes to my head because I really don't write notes, which I should. But anyways, and I think it's going back to the voters this November regarding, what should we do with that money that was allocated? Of course, they say voter approved for that arena. Should that be? What do you, in your opinion, in regards to that kind of funding? Why did it take so long to get to this point where now it's coming back to the voters to vote yay or nay regarding, I think it's $180 million for the arena?
Right. So with that, the bond election of 2012 included many things, and one of it was supposed to be a multi-purpose cultural performing arts center, and they said they could build it for $180 million. And this was, again, a part of a collection of projects. After it was approved, some time passed, and then this tax were being told that this was going to be a sports arena, and that the actual cost was going to be really closer to $400 million. And, that's not something that the voters approved of. They approved of a fine arts performing center for $180 million, not a sports arena for a G League basketball team for $400 million. So even like people who initially supported this, to many of them, and I've spoken to many people, they felt like it was a bait and switch. Like they're told one thing and then surprise, here's what's actually going to happen. And really the whole process of this was flawed. The communities that were affected, like Duranguito, were not really included in the decision-making process. They were basically told, hey, we're going to build an arena here, so we're going to move you out.
Wow. And it's sad, right? People have lived there for generations, and
right,
they had to move out. And then now, the area of Duranguito now is clear. And my wife went to go talk to one of the residents. I think in the 90s, I believe. But anyways, so Mr. Bell, let me ask you in regards to the overall. And I know we talked about safety and the streets and whatnot, but what do you see is the most important, or what really needs to be addressed overall? Not, I know accessibility, but what do you think overall for District 3? And me as a resident in this district, what do you think, or what do you see as the most important thing to address first day in?
All right. So, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. It's hard to just pin it down to one, but I will say this. One thing that we do need to address is that we haven't already discussed is going to be economics and bringing in jobs, right? We have the brain drain is real. There are a lot of young folks who are high school graduates, who are college graduates, who are leaving the city because they struggle to find jobs here. And then there's so many opportunities in cities outside of El Paso. They go into Houston or Austin or Phoenix or Dallas. I tell people this: UTEP has programs in the country, and so those graduates are getting snatched real quick. What we need to do is we need to two things. One is attract industries here in El Paso. So like engineering firms have them, set up shop here. Also other industries that are of importance to us, because of our proximity on the border, logistics and transportation is a great industry. Also the biomedical industry. We can do biotech research and medical device manufacturing here. But we also need to, support small businesses. Small businesses are the lifeblood of El Paso. So entrepreneurs, we need to attract. We need to help them with their businesses, help them grow their businesses, help them with startups, and we can do all of that through metric-based incentives.
What does that mean for someone like myself?
Okay.
I'm like, what is that?
Okay. So just a metric-based incentive it's an incentive to basically to set up shop here, but there's obviously going to be strings attached. Meaning, if you are promising, like a big company, they would come here. They're promising to create 200 jobs and to have each job pay $20 to $25 an hour. Great, we're willing to give them tax incentives like tax abatements or maybe do some relaxing on zoning, but in exchange, they have to provide the X amount of jobs that they said they were going to provide at the pay rate that they said they were going to provide. And we have to oversee that to make sure that they kept their word. And if they don't keep their word, then we have to reclaim those tax incentives that we gave them.
And it's true because you're right, Mr. Bell, because me knowing this, when it comes to employment, El Paso is really restaurant and bars. So it's really like low income, right? Where you make money on tips, but it's not guaranteed, right? And not only that, high paying job, like you said, you're right. My cousin, I have two cousins that left El Paso once they graduated from college. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna go live one of my cousins in Colorado, my other one's in Las Cruces because the money's better, right? And the thing is, for employment that's a big thing, right? Lack of employment or lack of a living wage, right? Not a minimum wage, but a living wage, and that's what you said right now. I think that addresses that. You're right. And now you said economics. That doesn't include the gas card, does it? I'm sorry, I had to say that. Sorry, folks.
I have to be diplomatic. So the gas cards were all taken away. City Council no longer has access to gas cards. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, now they get a monthly stipend in their check.
Yes. Okay. I had to say that. I'm sorry. District 3 and
all right.
Okay.
You're not the first person.
People don't know what I'm talking about, so look it up. You'll see. So, Mr. Bell, so let me ask you this: we're coming to the end of the podcast, and you want to talk some more, you're more welcome. Okay, this is your platform. Now, I'll ask this question of all candidates that will come on to this platform. So, what do you say, or what can you tell people, voters, more importantly, that you will make you the best candidate for District 3?
All right. So first we'll talk about, accessibility, why I think I'm the best candidate for accessibility, and then just overall. So really it's about showing the people, especially the disabled community, that you care about them. And what I tell people is, if you want to know what your candidate is going to do for the disabled community, they're doing it right now. And I'm going to go ahead and plug you real quick, because you mentioned earlier that you are an accessibility consultant for political campaigns, and that I do, on my literature, have the QR code for visually impaired folks right here.
Yes, sir.
Right? I got it in English and Spanish on both sides of my literature, so that, if I'm at the door of someone who is visually impaired, I'm not going to know, but when I leave that literature there and they eventually collect it, they're going to know that there's a QR code there they can scan and actually read my platform.
And you know what? Can I interrupt you real fast? And that's important, Mr. Bell, because when there's lack, and this is overall for all candidates that are hearing this. And first of all, thank you for doing that. The QR code, that means a lot. I think you, as far as I understand, Lemon, excuse me, Ms. Reyes, Monica Reyes, she's running for District 1, I believe.
Hmm.
Brian Kennedy, they're all taking this initiative. So what this does, folks, and I'm going to end it, towards the end, I'll talk about more of this, more on this. QR codes allow people with visual impairment to access that printed material. So, for example, like myself, I'm blind. I'm a voter. I've been voting for a while. So, if someone gives me a document, I can't see it. But if you hand me a document and it has a QR code, that piques my interest. I'm like, this person took the extra initiative to make their platform or their document accessible. And where a QR code is basically I scan it with my phone and it'll come up as a text, either through a website or whatnot. And Mr. Bell, like I said, I appreciate you doing that. And also with that, uh, when people have campaign rallies or discussions, community discussions, to have them in accessible areas too, because there's times I've gone to campaigns in the past, and
Hmm.
those restaurants or those clubs or whatever, they're not accessible for someone in a wheelchair. We have to keep that in mind. And I know you're conscious of that, Mr. Bell, but I'm just saying this overall so the message gets through. And I appreciate you doing that because I'll be honest with you, I think you were one of the first. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, you reached out to me regarding that. So, and we do offer services to empoweredvoices.us. But like I said, thank you, Mr. Bell. You did reach out to us and asked us to provide more information on that. But I'll let you continue on, sir.
Right. And so it's really about, reaching out to folks like you because you're going to know more about what happens in the disabled community than I am going to know. So it's about, listening to those folks. And I do have, supporters of my campaign who are a part of the disabled community. I'm going to go shout out my friend Nathan Coleman and Allison Rivera. They're big supporters of mine, and they believe in this campaign and what I bring to the table as far as supporting the disabled community in the next 4 to 8 years. Now, also, I think what qualifies me is going to be my experience with handling federal tax dollars, right? So I had to oversee and manage 1.5 million in federal tax dollars, and that's important because at the federal level, there's a lot of oversight and scrutiny that does not exist at the municipal level. And we've all seen that. You mentioned the gas card earlier, and I mentioned the 380 agreements. A lot of money is just like slipped through the cracks, and so you need someone who's going to treat the taxpayers' money with respect and dignity, and someone who comes from a background of auditing and oversight and accountability. Right? I'm the candidate that you can hold accountable, and if I get in council, I'm going to make sure that we hold our city departments accountable.
And you're right, Mr. Diaz, because when I worked at the Department of Labor before I lost my vision, and you're right. The federal government has a higher standards, dot the I's and cross the T's. I had 99 standards I had to meet per case because I was OWCP, the workman's comp, and I had to hit 99 standards for 90 for one case. So you're right, Mr. Davis. Just out of curiosity, when you're in the Army or Reserve, are you GS1, GS5, or just different pay? Just out of curiosity.
So, military has its own pay scale. It's not part of the GS pay scale. It's a completely different thing. But I do have a security clearance.
Right, exactly. Talking about that real quick, because when I moved to Dallas, from El Paso to Dallas, I had to get my clearance, and everybody in my class, my training class, got clearances. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't get nothing. I'm like, somehow my heart's bumping. So I asked my trainer, I go, ma'am, I didn't get my clearance. She goes, well, Mr. Savala, if you don't get your clearance, we have to walk you out. I'm like, I just moved from El Paso. What do you mean? So she said, well, go upstairs. So I went upstairs and they have glass, all this protection, whatever. I walk in and the lady goes, your name, sir? I go, and my heart's beating right. I'm like, George Savala. And she's like, oh, here it is. We forgot to take it. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. So that was scary. That was really scary. But so let me ask you this, and I think I want to touch on this one more time. When it comes to taxes, and I know everybody says this, and I understand, but I want you to get it from a perspective of someone where that really impacts. and my
Mhm.
friends and allies, when you're elderly or you're low income or an individual with disabilities, unfortunately, the employment status for people with disabilities is very low. And so they had to reside on social services. And for SSI folks, the maximum right now is I think 770 SSI. SSDI, of course, is different. But with that being said, if you're living at home, and thankfully I'm working. I'm a contractor with the state of Texas. But the thing is, if you have no income or SSI or you're elderly and you're getting retirement, your taxes go up, folks. You have to decide: do I pay my taxes or do I get medicine? I've seen that. I've seen people have to decide: do I buy my diabetes or do I don't? So with that being said, Mr. Davis or Mr. A good friend of mine, sorry about that, Mr. Bell, what do you? How can you ensure that you'll listen to us? I know you will, but I want to just get that message across about how to stop or help us when it comes to taxes.
Right. So, multi-point. So you mentioned how will I be able to ensure that they'll listen to me. So one thing I'm going to do is I want to have a satellite office in the district, so that way folks don't have to travel downtown try to fight traffic, and if they drive, having to pay for expensive parking. We can actually have a satellite. We can use discretionary funds to pay for a satellite office within the district, so it's a lot closer. I'm going to make sure that it's ADA accessible, of course.
Mhm.
Right now, only one of the 8 city council representatives has a satellite office, so that
Really? Oh wow.
right,
Okay,
right.
that's
Every
pretty
council
sad,
member
right?
gets discretionary funds. Yeah, so they can actually do that. So yeah, I'm gonna. That's one of the things I'm gonna commit to doing is getting a satellite office and having regular hours there, so that folks can come visit me, and it's gonna, again, a lot easier, especially for someone who might be disabled and might have difficulty traveling to visit within their own district versus trying to go downtown.
True, true.
Mhm.
And talking about transportation, I have to ask this question. Otherwise, my friends are going to be like, why didn't you ask this question? Sun Mitchell Lift. Uh, some people are yay, some people are nay, some people don't really care. But the Lyft, for those who don't know, it's a local paratransit service that Sun Metro has. It is right now currently by MV Transportation. And just real quick, Lyft, LIFT, stands for Living Independently Facilitated Through Transportation. So with that being said, Mr. Bell, how can you ensure that the Lyft it will be efficient to help us people with disabilities go to work, go to school, or go to our doctor's office or doctor appointments?
Right. And so that's going to be a lot of oversight in ensuring that Sun Metro is doing their job, and also like, the MPO board, the Metropolitan Public Organization, which oversees public transportation, making sure that lifts are fully funded. Because we have to remember, this is lifts and public transportation are services; they're not profit driven. So, and a lot of people, think that because it doesn't make money, it doesn't generate revenue for the city, that it's wasteful, and it's not. It's a service is meant to ensure that you know
Can you say that again, Mr. Bell? Because some officials think that it's supposed to make a profit. I'm not really saying who it is, but
right,
there within management, Sun Metro or one of the deputy managers considers Sun Metro as supposed to be profit. It's not.
right. It's a service. It's not profit driven. It's service driven. It's to ensure that our residents are able to travel throughout the city. Remember, it's living independently. So we want to make sure that folks who can't drive, who are able to move around, that they're not trapped, by geography. And yes, that means, aggressively seeking out funds from TxDOT, from USDOT, to ensure that we're able to fund our Lyft program to make sure that the vehicles they're using are working at full capacity.
And by you saying that, Mr. Bell, it's kind of frustrating because not being involved with paratransit for 12 years. The current director, I have to say, Anthony, he's doing a better job. And with that being said, it's the thing that frustrates me, folks, that you may not know, and I found all this information through Open Records Act or Open Records Request, is that during the pandemic, Sun Metro, okay, for operations, received an additional, aside from their allotted budget, 90 or close to $96 million, 94, $96 million for operations. But yet we came out of the pandemic, they're running low on buses, and now they're trying to play catch up, purchasing new buses and whatnot. And it's just kind of frustrating because us, we can't just jump in their car and go somewhere. If you invite me to your campaign or you invite me to somewhere, Mr. Bell, I have to get a lift, or my wife will take me, right? But they say I have to take a lift, and there's no drivers or there's no buses. It impacts us, and especially there's a friend of mine. I won't say her name. She goes to doctor's offices or doctor visits almost every week, and sometimes when she arrives, she gets turned away because she's late. Mind you, she has to get wound care
Mm-hmm.
treatments, and that's so frustrating. Or you have to go to work, you're late. So I mean, with that being said, Mr. Bell, I hope you do look, have oversight with the lift, Cemental lift. I know Art Frietto, a big champion of that, right currently. Even Cassandra Hernandez, we have to give her credit. She looks over the lift. So hopefully, Mr. Bell, when you come into office, hopefully that you have that in mind when it comes to transportation.
Of course, absolutely. And like even like for on the veteran side of it, there's what, four buses that go to William Beaumont. Two are in the morning, two in the afternoon. It's like I think they leave at 8:15, 9 o'clock, 1:15, and 2 o'clock. Now, if you live in the Cielo Vista area, it's a lot easier for you to get on those buses. But if you live outside of that area, then you have to travel to the Cielo Vista bus hub and then take the bus there. And then that's a lot of time that has to be coordinated, and it's a logistical nightmare. And we need to ensure that we have more routes going to and from William Beaumont, not just from Cielo Vista, but from other parts of the city, and make sure they're running more often because our veterans, they served overseas. Many of them became disabled from combat, and they need to be treated with the dignity and respect that they have earned.
Exactly. Amen to that. Amen. That's you're so true. So in closing out there, Mr. Bell, what if someone wants to volunteer or donate to your campaign? How can they do that? And by
You
the way, just
can,
before you start, those who are visually impaired, I have Mr. I hope I have the right number. I have Mr. Bell's
yes,
number at the bottom of the screen.
yes, sir.
So how
So
can they contact you? Well, like website, email.
website is going to be Kenneth Bell TX, like Texas TX.com. Email is going to be Kenneth Bell tx@gmail.com. They can also visit me on social media. Facebook is going to be Kenneth Bell for City Council District 3. And Instagram and Twitter and TikTok are going to be Kenneth Bell TX. And they can
You're on
donate
TikTok too,
online.
really? Okay.
Huh?
You're on
Yeah.
TikTok also. All right, cool.
Yep, I'm on the TikTok, before they ban it. Got a couple months left.
Right. Yeah, one more year for the end of the year. Anyway, I don't know how it
Yeah.
works, but Mr. Bell, thank you for coming on. I know when I asked you, right away you said yes. Unfortunately, other candidates are either scared to talk about accessibility. And folks, don't be scared. It's not a thing to you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Accessibility is sometimes awareness. And with that being said, for other candidates that are listening, just make sure you're like Mr. Bell has done. Make sure your material is accessible for those who are blind or even have a learning disability. Those QR codes help. And if you're going to have a campaign event, make sure please that it's accessible. Now, once you come into office, guess what? It is by law. You have to Ordinance 999. Look it up. You have to make it accessible. But any last words, Mr. Bell?
Yeah. Like I said, running for City Council District 3. Early voting starts October 21st, goes through November 1st. Election day is November 5th. I'm going to, just so you guys know, on the ballot, City Council will be the first option. Then it's going to be mayor. Then it's going to be president and Senate and downward. So I'm number 4. I'm the number 4 option. So please vote Kenneth Bell, City Council District 3.
Hey, there you go. So tomorrow, folks, to let you know the little quick lineup schedule here. Tomorrow, we will have Mr. Wesley Lawrence. He's running for District 4 at 1 p.m. We have been contacting Ms. Amanda Cunningham from District 5 candidate, and Felix Munoz is another candidate for District 5. So we're working on scheduling them. And if you want to come on board, just go and email me at george@empoweredvoices.us. That's george@empoweredvoices.us. Do you have any upcoming events there, Mr. Bell, that you might want to let people know?
Let's see. Well, I'm block walking every day, so hopefully I'll see you there. I am going to be working on another event before the election. That's time and locations to be determined. But I want to plug this Saturday, Engine 3 Brewery. They're a firefighter-owned brewery. They're doing their firefighters calendar event from 4 to 8. I'm going to pop in there a little bit early at 4 o'clock. So if you're there, please talk to me or I'll talk to you. And again, I look forward to talking to everyone in my district and throughout the city, because this election is going to be important and we need to make sure that we get the right people in so that our community has good, strong advocates, leading to the next 4 to 8 years.
Yes, sir. Amen to that. So I'm going to ask you I waited on purpose for the last question. Your campaign may hinge on this, Mr. Bell, so please consider your answer. Are you a Dallas fan?
Am I what?
Are you a Dallas fan?
The Dallas Mavericks, I think they're doing great.
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. And UTEP's struggling. Man, oh man, UTEP's struggling. I don't know. It's a new coach, but the same results. I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully they'll get, they're off this week. Next week they'll be playing, I think, San Antonio or Sam Houston or something like that. So one of those two teams. But okay, Mr. David. I'm sorry?
Go Miners.
Go Miners next Thursday. Is it here? I think it's here at the Sun Bowl. So with that being said, Mr. Bell, thank you so much for coming on board, for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're block walking right now. I couldn't do that. I get tired just walking to the kitchen. I don't know about that, but so anyways, thank you there, Mr. Bell, for coming on. Everyone else, thank you for joining us, and may everyone have a great day and peace.
All right, peace.